first panel of the day is made up of a group of exceptional leaders who embody allyship, purpose, and authenticity. They're here to talk honestly about the barriers they've pushed through, the realities of leadership today, and how each of us, regardless of job title, can shape more equitable, humane systems. So please join me in welcoming, and when I mention your names, if you can make your way to the stage, please, Lee Chambers, Chief Psychologist and founder of Essentialize and Male Allies UK, Dhruv Sardar, Managing Director at Alvarez and Marsal, and co-sponsor of the Inclusive Diversity Office, Tom Stancliffe, co-founder of Tribe and the Tribe Freedom Foundation, Ghizla Abam, a global health and governance leader driving change in public policy and healthcare, and Susan MacDonald, award-winning engineering and sustainability leader shaping the future of the energy transition. You can read their full bios in the brochures on your tables. Ladies and gentlemen, your first panel of the day, Power and Allies. Okay, I have to do serious work now, so I have to put my glasses on. Welcome to all our fantastic panelists. And I thought I wanted to start by just setting the foundation. And so, in a nutshell, or in a sentence, or even a few words, could I just ask you to share a moment of allyship, given or received, that has genuinely changed something for you? And I don't mind which way we start, but Lee, let's start with you and move down that way.
Yeah, so a moment that really resonates with me was actually the start of the journey in forging the organisation that I run today, Male Allies UK. So in 2015, I had to learn to walk again after illness, and I'd spent 5 years building a tech business to go on that journey. Losing the ability to walk was significantly challenging, but after a recovery and learning to walk alongside my newborn daughter, I decided to step out of my business operationally to become a stay-at-home father. And that was a massive transition that has massively shaped me as a person. And I would say it's the most effective leadership and development training course I've ever been on, looking after those two. But I walked into my local baby and toddler group needing what I felt was a bit of respite and a bit of adult conversation. And I was the only father in the room, but there was a group of women who welcomed me and made me feel like I could be part of that conversation, that I was actually welcome to be a caregiver and actually be in that space. And that made a massive difference to me stepping into that room where I was the only one. And I just wish that for everyone else, knowing that as a man, that's quite a rare experience, especially in some industries, but that women and people of colour quite often might feel that. So could we all be as welcoming to people who might be different and actually be curious about their difference rather than judgmental or fear it? Because it made a massive difference to me, and it's now the reason why I'm so passionate about allyship as a skill set.
Thank you, Lee. I just want to pick up then, it seems appropriate to pick up of what you've just said. You know, you were the stay-at-home dad, and you say it was the most intensive leadership development program of your life. I had a 10-year-old and I stayed at home as well, and I have to second that. But can I just ask you then, what did that teach you about leadership?
So for me, it helped me understand how undervalued caregiving was in the UK, which made me think about, from a leadership perspective, how that may influence people that I lead. In terms of skill set, I run a team of over 100 people, so I thought that I was building a whole range of leadership skills doing that. What I didn't realise is there is nothing more powerful than your ability to negotiate than working with toddlers. It made me more patient and more present, which has influenced my own leadership style to create more space to listen. It made me more effective at listening. So now I'm a leader who's much more empathetic and connected to my team and much more likely to listen rather than be the one talking. And also it just helped me become more succinct in my own communication. And it just put me into a different set of shoes. And now I'm curious about what my team are going through and what influences might be shaping them, but what barriers might they face that I'm not. And also, I'll be honest, sitting in a room full of mothers and grandmothers and realising that every single woman in that room had a story made me incredibly passionate to think what I could potentially do to make a difference. So those stories started to become the rarity instead of the norm. And that's why I do so much work today, bringing men and women together to explore how we can come together to break those barriers, how we can start to cross some of these gender divisions that are being sown intentionally by society, and actually realise when we go on that journey together and have the moral courage to realise that we're not always right, but we're always able to learn, that actually we can fundamentally make workplaces where everyone can perform, everyone can belong, and everyone can reach their potential.
So, such a powerful message. Thank you. Dhruv, I'll move on. And again, a moment of allyship, perhaps, that has changed you.
Thanks, Dorothy, and great pronunciation of my name as well. So firstly, congratulations to all of you for making the time to be here, because this is an important forum, but also an important topic. I'll probably talk about something that's more current for me right now. I've got an 11-year-old daughter, and she is extremely driven, extremely passionate, and looking for role models not only in her mother, but also in me in terms of supporting her. For an 11-year-old to tell me one day that I want to go to Columbia University, would you pay for my summer pre-college tuition, which is about £13,000, took me a bit by shock. Because we hadn't asked her to go and apply herself, but she went ahead and did it. And then she came to us saying, well, would you support me? So the allyship, I think, for me at least, starts at home. We can always talk about the professional role models we've had in our firm. In my career, some of the best mentors I've had have been women as well. And what I've always found in the people I've come across is the sacrifices they make. My wife was a management consultant. She had 2 kids, and she was always balancing. And what I tried to do very early on was make sure that I was always there to support. And it's not always easy to do that. And it's about having those conversations and recognizing that with empathy, with understanding, and with the recognition that we all have different ways of solving problems and thinking is how you actually build allyship.
Dhruv, Alvarez and Marsal are one of the sponsors for this event. What does the commitment to inclusion mean to you personally?
So for those of you who don't know, we're a global professional services firm. We're over 13,000 people in over 40 countries. We're best known for restructuring, which is our origins. And restructuring, as you can imagine, you won't normally find many women doing distress turnarounds and Chapter 11 bankruptcies in North America. The majority of our business is performance improvement, transactions, and we have other business lines. For me personally, the reason why I'm so passionate is I want to make sure that people understand that actually more diverse teams get you to better solutions. And the only way you do that is by attracting diverse thinking. Now, diversity starts with gender equality, but it also starts with people coming from different walks of life. And the way we're doing this, and why it's so important to me, is we're making sure we are encouraging leadership at every level of our organization. It doesn't start with the most senior leaders. It's about giving people a voice in the room, whether they're analysts already starting their careers in our firm, and making sure that there are different opportunities for people to be here. We have two colleagues of mine today in the room who I'm personally very proud of, who actually have been nominated as well. And we didn't ask them to apply. They applied themselves. We learned about Novi through Eric over here as well, who recommended the forum. And I think for me, what's super important is to build more allyship, to make sure that in our organizations we're having those conversations, we're breaking biases where there might be some, because only through conversation can we actually educate people and making them realize that there are actually different ways of looking at things.
I think I want to bring in Susan on this point, because like you say, it's really important that allyship, diversity, inclusion, equity, inclusion, all of that is not just from the top down, but it's at every level of the business. And Susan, I know you've been a part of the Novi ecosystem. You were a finalist, you've been an award winner, and I want to know how the platform has enabled you to lift others.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, congratulations to everyone. It doesn't quite feel like it's been a year since this community were together at this leadership summit. I think my kind of reflections are that kind of concentric circles of, I really try and live by some words that my Nana shared with me. And she always shared, how are you making a difference and making a positive impact for your family, your community, and then if you can, a bit larger in society. So I always often think, she's not with us anymore, what would my Nana think? And I think it's been touched on before, since winning STEM Leader of the Year, I'm excited to share, I'm an engineer by background, and I've become a trustee of the Women's Engineering Society. And it's it's a proud organisation to be a member of, but also to have oversight of, because we have still few engineers in our UK workforce, yet the opportunities that lie ahead in terms of driving an economy based on sustainability and future purpose is there. So it's enabled me to work with some of our fantastic volunteers, our partnerships around how do we scale the impact. The second thing is, and those that may know me personally, although I hail from Glasgow in Scotland, I actually quite like warmer climates, but I did go to Antarctica earlier this year for 3 weeks as part of a Women in STEM Leadership programme, and I actually described this community here because last year was my first opportunity to feel embraced by this community, and I'm joined here by my colleague Zenobia, who I can see is doing her fantastic work of capturing this moment at the back. And I want to capture it because for me, allyship is not just also from senior leaders. I draw a lot of energy and support from my team members as well. And so Zenobia is part of my allyship and where I get a lot of energy. And I think what's really important is how do we build other people with us. And so I work and live just not far from London, but my grandfather worked as a rope maker in the shipyards. My both parents were the first to go to education. And so I think what I really try and do is be able to tell about the art of the possible. So actually I was in a school yesterday at Twyford by Acton in Maine to share that. And I think I see that as part of the legacy for everyone in this room. Just think about, if you asked everyone what commitment, if we all just committed to go and speak to 2 schools about the fantastic work you each are doing, that impact will be so much bigger. So for me, it's about sometimes, you need strength in allies to be able to know that you can achieve something, but sometimes we can kind of dampen that opportunity. And so if you spot an opportunity, I call it my niggle. If you have a niggle that something's going to really help benefit your team, people around you, just do it. And that point around lived experience is so important. And so really thinking about how you work with others. So I've worked with visually impaired charities to improve public sector services. And I think we've touched a thread to, I'm a mum, so my daughter's 2.5, so I went away for 3 weeks. And so you can imagine there were some reflections around what that meant as a mother, going away for 3.5 weeks at a time. But I had such great allies that really saw the benefit. And I think the exciting thing for me in sharing that story is whenever we read the book, so if you haven't come across The Snail and the Whale by Julia Donaldson, it's a fantastic book. I probably read it about 5 times every week. And she reads it, and when we come to it, she says, Mummy saw a penguin, Mummy saw a seal. So remember, actually, those moments you take for your own learning actually can really help drive other people's opportunities in the art of the possible too. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And staying on that theme and that note around identity and influence and how that shapes leadership, I want to ask you, Ghizla, because you are a trailblazer. I mean, often the first in many roles at decision-making tables. How do you use that influence, sometimes a privilege and sometimes pressure, to open doors for others?
Well, it's really interesting. I guess just looking at my journey, I started off just giving a little bit of background. I had no idea I'd end up in healthcare. I got really ill, and I decided I wanted to be a global health advocate. And so I was working for UK government at the time, and I was in a junior position, even though I just finished my MBA, they wouldn't promote me. And I was asked to chair a working group with heads of department. And I said, fine, I took the opportunity. After doing that, I wasn't getting a promotion. Then I ended up working for another body where they doubled my salary as a result of that. But it still wasn't enough because I said, I want to be a global health advocate, and I can only achieve that by working in a global company. So I then applied and got into General Electric as the first head of government affairs for UK and Ireland. And I decided to get a mentor internally. So I'm just giving you reason, there's sort of a little bit of background. And I reached out to the vice chairman of all of GE, 300,000 staff, and no one was able to reach out to him because he was quite feared. And I sent him a message, not telling anyone about it. After 3 days, he responded to me, he said, well, no one has had the audacity to ask me to mentor them, so I might as well mentor you. And that, he became my internal champion, not only my mentor and sponsor. I was able to, he encouraged me to think outside the box and said, bring your ideas, write it, and we'll look at it. I ended up being promoted above 2 men to head up the function globally and set it up in 190 countries for government affairs. And my team and I developed a new blueprint, and within a year, we're bringing in over $600 million for the company. So that has taught me that it's important to build a team, to open doors for people. But through that journey, I never had any women leaders, because in my first role, there was a woman leader we all used to go to. It was really nice. And one day, she called all of us women that she used to chat with her together. I said, I'm leaving the company. She said, oh, have you got another job? I said, no. And we said, why are you going? She said, one day you'll understand. It's lonely at the top. I'm the only woman in the boardroom, and I'm struggling. I can't do it anymore, so I'm just resigning, and I'll look for something else. And that sat with me. So I'm spending my time now advocating for women, mentoring people, spending time explaining to them that outside your normal career, whilst you are learning your craft, spend time volunteering, get on a board. You can be on board even at age 20, even if, as a volunteer or doing some charity work, and that will change your life.
Love that. I mean, there is such a brilliant lesson right there. That shows pure courage. And I always said to people, when I set up my business, I always said, no, I'm going to go to the person right at the top. And I promise you, that's exactly what I did. Every time I approached someone, I went right to the top. You know why? Because even if they couldn't help me, they would point me to the person in their organization or business who could. And because that message came from the person at the top, you got an in straight away. Absolute gold dust right there. And I think one of the other things that also comes out from what you've all spoken about, actually, is this belief that businesses do good, and they are for good. And Tom, that brings me to you. You've raised more than £2.5 million to fight modern slavery through a natural energy brand. That is phenomenal. But what convinced you that business must be a force for good?
Yeah, well, first of all, yeah, I'd say it's great to be here. Yeah, I think the key thing for us at Tribe was that our founding journey we didn't necessarily set out to create a business. About 10 years ago, along with a few friends, I was working as a corporate lawyer, and we effectively wanted to, super addicted to long distance running, and also wanting to make a kind of bigger impact beyond what we felt we were making day to day. So anyway, long story short, we set up this 1,000-mile run going from the Ukraine, Odessa, to Dubrovnik, sort of on the Adriatic. And yeah, that journey was all about, trying to have the most amazing experience. We published our route online. We said to people, if you'd like to come and join us, whether it's for a day, whether it's for 3 days, whether it's for the whole month, come and be part of our journey, And so this kind of amazing kind of community project kind of snowballed from it. And it was very much a journey that kind of changed our lives in terms of both the kind of physical challenge, but also ultimately, what we're talking about today, learning about allyship. Just, if you ever want to learn the power of doing things with other people, I would recommend going on an ultra run, because we always talk about going further, faster together. Because in a day of long distance running, you're up and you're down, and you're up and you're down, and what sustains you through those ups and downs is other people, and the community you're with, and that's ultimately why we ended up calling Tribe. So we talk about going further, faster together, and so I suppose that's a long way of saying that ultimately wanting to make a social impact was part of our founding story and was always in the DNA of Tribe. So before we'd even started making products, we had a very, very strong belief that whatever we set out to do, we wanted it to continue that journey that was all about fighting modern slavery. And as we built the business, we built into both our commercial model, the fact that every product that would be sold would go supporting modern slavery, but also in terms of how we activated the brand and got people trying products. We kept these amazing runs and endurance challenges. So I suppose that was one, yeah.
What would you say to leaders who would turn around and say, we can't afford social impact right now?
I think I'd say, yeah, that I think it's really, I think ultimately you have to be committed and believe in the power of that social impact and think this is what we want to do. And so I think that is important. But I would also say it's just important to think, how can we build social impact into our commercial model ultimately in a sustainable way? So, for us, it's, 1p per bar, and also the events we organise. So I think that would be my main bit of advice, that, over and above believing that it's an important thing to do to have a social impact, I think it's also important to say, how can we build this into what we're doing in a sustainable way? Because obviously, if you're trying to make an impact in an unsustainable way, it will ultimately become unsustainable. But I think one of the things that's worked well at Tribe is that it's been built into our DNA, both in terms of our founding story, but also all the products we sell, the events we do. So I think that would be my advice: just thinking how you can embed it in your operation in a long-term way.
Okay, so time has caught up with us, and I'm gutted because I feel like there's so much more to explore here. But if I could just ask each of you one final thought or takeaway or an action point for our audience around how they could lead with power and purpose, what should it be? Lee, let's go down this end. So one thing for the audience around power and purpose, what could it be for them?
I'll reflect back on what I said earlier around listening. And the word allyship itself comes from the old French word allier, which means to combine, to unite, and to come together. Get to know people, get curious about the story, remove that judgment, and let's actually realise collectively we can make so much change, but that requires us to actively and intentionally come together. And each one of us can do that in the everyday moments in our lives.
Lovely, Dhruv.
I'd say continue to bring leadership in your organizations and your teams. I think the more people can see you speak openly about issues and mentor, particularly young men as well. I think what you have is in a position of authority for many of you who are leaders in this room. And that's how you're going to bring allyship and support going forward.
Thank you.
So just two reflections. The first, actually, I'm going to steal from Barack Obama when he visited COP in Glasgow, is get active. I think that he shared that with school children, but I think it's so true for all of us in our career. And the second one is, I think, not to undervalue the importance of instilling confidence in others. That's such a precious gift. So they were the two things I'd share.
For me, I'll say two things. One, externally, build a network of people, like-minded people who you can brainstorm with and share ideas with. Then internally, look at where there are gaps and bring a team together. There's no company who say no to even a junior person, bringing people together and saying, I've seen this problem, I've seen this opportunity for organization. I want to help work with a number of people across the organization to make that change. And that's what I did. And if you do that, you will end up leading with purpose, and you'll get promoted and you'll be recognized.
Final word, Tom?
I think it would be finding great partners in your mission. And I should say the mission of the foundation is all around fighting modern slavery, and we should actually call out at this moment that we've been working with Ella's sort of making grants since 2018, and I can definitely vouch for the incredible work they do fighting modern slavery. And I should say Emily and Minka have been on 3 or 4 of our Run for Love runs as well. So, we've been really lucky in that mission to fight modern slavery to find an amazing partner like Ella's that we can kind of support. And I can definitely vouch for the incredible and life-changing work they do.
And can I just say a huge thank you to this phenomenal, passionate group of leaders who are making change every single day, and not only making it for themselves and their communities, but for society at large. So let's show real appreciation for my amazing panelists. Thank you.